Right, you perps. Yeah? Now you let this go live, do you? On the full moon? Educateyourself.org. Let's see if I can find that bloody website, right? You want to know how they mess about with your mind? The trauma-based mind control. There's a website above on the stream. I pay for this 15 bloody quid a month in UK currency. Don't know how long for now. But the fact is, you don't fucking come into my pissing home, you twats. Do you hear me, you Freemason demons, possessed demonic entities? I know exactly how this program now works. Oh, it's... you just want one reaction to neuromonitoring, neuro brain sciences. This is neuroscience. Brain, let me see if I can find that link. Brain interface technology. Let me see if I can find the tab. You need to be careful because these are reptilian shape-shifting demons. Reptilian. Do you know the advancement in technology? Ugh. I really just can't put any words to this. But anyway, James Bartley at the Closed Encounters Conference Reptilian. I'm not into aliens, but this is real. Shape-shifting press. Sacrifices, ritual, satanic ritual abuses. That's what you fucking do. Excuse my French. Right, first, before I do, disclaimer. Notice to agent, notice to principal, notice to principals, notice to agents. I do not consent to any of your possessed demonic entities monitoring anything I do in my private life. Get it? The flesh and blood living soul. You ain't gonna take my soul. You ain't gonna fucking keep hacking into my pissing brain. Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about? Yeah? You don't know the torture, what people go through. You think they're just making it all up, do you? Well, what is mind control? What is trauma-based mind control? What are super soldiers? What are target individuals? When I fucking learn, do you? No. You see, the stalking, the spying, you see, everything's about data mining, data control, and turning individuals into... I never ever consented to be put in a program in the first bloody place to be experimented upon. So when you get, you see, it's not about just idiots being pathetic. It's a military organised international program of targeted individuals, okay? And to do despicable things, I won't even put a terminology to it. There's people, thousands around the world who do excellent job of certain things you get to find out. And do you know, with a pyramid scheme at the top, they worship the Luciferian, you know, Lucifer, or whatever word you want to call it, you know, and then as soon as you become enlightened to knowledge, they've got to watch you and monitor you, right? But I hope this planet is destroyed by these comets, asteroids, and this Nibiru, because I will be so happy. Because I know many of our souls out there who have done nothing to any other individual. Yeah, and hope these innocent people and the souls of the young people will be lifted up in the spiritual realm, and many people like I. But you're demonic souls, your entities out there, you'll be obliterated to completely nothing. You think you're going to live on in transhumanism, do you? I don't think so. You think you can break an entry to my home? I don't think so. You think you can set me up again? I don't think so, because I found some more evidence. So, let's have a nose, shall we? Let's have a nose. And you keep hacking into the main internet. Who gave you the effing consent? Right? To hack into the paid for internet. Yeah? It's always AI. One watching, monitor, one's responses. So just fucking educate yourself, you twats. Not those that are first time watching this, but the perps that are doing this. So let me just have a look, see if I still got it. It might be on a different. I'll just keep the streaming, because every time I go fucking asleep, yeah, I've got audio evidence of what you're fucking doing to me during the night, you twats. With your technology. They're shape-shifting demons that are covering up, you know. Just stick at their fucking tongues to me. I mean, how disgusting perps you are. I think there's a lot of good people out there who already know what's going on. Really do. It's really good, actually. People do know. I'm just going to put so much in the pocket. I've had enough of your shit. So, reptilian wizards, yeah, sticking out your fucking tongues. Excuse my French. Do you really want to see this demonic life that we're living in? Disclaimer for over 18s only. This is a shape-shifting demons, and you don't fucking think it's real. Well, they don't make up fucking photos, excuse my French, like this, do they? Before they fucking hack this again. Fuck off. Stop fucking hacking me, you twats. Right. Excuse my French, but they're fucking triggering me. And they know they are. Fuck off. Just piss off, you wankers. Shape-shifting demons. You see, I told you. As soon as they start sharing something, they fucking hack everything. Sorry, I don't normally swear, but they bloody well pee me off today. This is disgusting, demonic, possessed demons, right? You're sticking out a effing tongue. I'm not going to log in. You're sticking out unnatural tongues, the eye shape-shifting. You don't believe. Go on Instagram. Go and look at these posts, right? Go as a reptilian tongue hunter. I don't necessarily go looking for things like this. There's no bloody acting, right? Look at that effing. Ugh. You find that attractive, do you? This is Satan's world. It is not. Make me ill. I'm trying to find something. Really? You call that a natural tongue? Nope. Really? Call them target individuals and they have tongues like that? There's a certain fake individuals out there. And this one? I mean, what car would you want to pose like that to stick out your long tongue? Especially this one. Really? Is that what you do? Kidnap kids? Underground dumbs? And keep them in cages? And adults? And you use the military, my labs, to do that? I need to find, see if I can find the website. I was going to look into. I don't think I could find it, because I'm not just going to open a bloody tab. They usually block me, so let me see if I can type it in for a new tab. I might be just blocked. Educate. And I'm going to play something in the background. Educate yourself to log. They might block this on the server. So, let's screen share this. You watch what I'm trying to do to get the website up and see whether or not they block it. You want to see the mind control? Look at this. This is what they do to the minds. Yeah, there's a lot of history there. You want to see the evidence? You think people like me are making it up? How do you prevent alien military adoptions? Adoptions. 2005, look. And Scott is alive. Let's see what Scott's saying now. Joe Duffy's a real TI in Scotland, England.
I've never said I was a genius. Yeah, I have 148 IQ, which is probably twice what yours is. But I've never said a disparaging remark to you. But that's changing because you attacked me for no fucking reason. I don't shit about anybody very much except for my kids or others. So if you got a problem with me, you need to work it out because I haven't done shit to you. I've always been nice to you. I've always watched your videos, haven't talked shit to you. I don't appreciate you talking shit about me behind my back. So that's a piece of shit move. You need to change your fucking name from real target back to fake target. That's bullshit.
Sure.
But anyway, I got a sub from you. I don't need to hear from you. I don't need to see you. If you think I'm an idiot, then just stay the fuck out of my life. Bye.
This is what they do to get different people to, this is a shame. This is what they do to conquer and divide. Educate yourself to log as well as mind control. This is what they do. They mess people's heads up. Trauma-based, electronic, also based mind control. Okay? It is to really infiltrate and change the brainwaves and the patterns. And you want to look into the history of the Monarch Project electronically. You know, CIA behind it, MK Ultra, mind control. You go back to Project Paperclip, World War II operations, developing all those technologies and secret underground military bases. Yeah? The only thing we were told about the projects and Nazis, years ago, you know, and they developed people into killers, serial killers and stuff, and shooters and all this stuff. And thousands of people are kidnapped, and even kids snapped off the streets, you know. And this Educate Yourself website. You've got to do some digging if you want to know more. Don't take my word for nothing. And it's intentionally done. It's to traumatise, And they do it, the mind control program individuals. The lone gunman. You hear about that all the time, don't you? Attempt school shootings and all that stuff, right? The Monarch program started in 1976. A Black goes into this page. You want to look into it if you want. It's so sad. And then you've got all these demonic connections are fabricated, infiltrated, or you could say it's not just America. You got everything infiltrated in all this. Corporations, business, medical, health, care, housing, police, military, etc., etc. And then electronically, cell phone towers, 5G, ELF microwave, torture in their technology, and it's more sophisticated now. And if you don't really know why it all began, you want to just educate yourself. And the frequencies is because the human body is made of frequencies. I've got to just. Thanks for the memories. You got so. I didn't even know all of this existed years ago. You've got HARP, you've got CERN that open up portals for the demonic entities to come through. The Illuminati. Who are the Illuminati? The table of reference I've got. Once you get to it, there is a 36-degree masonry, and then it goes into various links, and why do you think people are put on a list? Because they're not protecting nobody or themselves. I'm not protecting myself, nobody. This is what they do. It is a nightmare of George Orwell, the Big Brother. It's more than that now, it's much more than that. And there's the books available, and so many documentaries, and well, they turn people into sex slaves, right? It's like that's the demonic torment, understanding the attack and how to for it. No, not 1981. Let's have a look at James Corbett explains. He wasn't perfect. He got set up like Max Myers. Whatever happened to him? Yeah, because James Corbett exposed in 2008, and they set him up because what he's trying to get out. Like many people. Oh, look how they blocked the site now. Can you see how they just done? Hacked into my internet before this. The connection was reset. Because you don't want the truth to be told. Well, in the meantime, I'm just playing this instead. Because you're just very demonic. And I'm just going to now focus on me.
Flying an alien craft. And many people that have ET experiences, positive ET experiences, not so positive ET experiences, and military experiences, they describe being put into sometimes a small craft, and in this altered state, altered personality, they seem to be able to operate alien craft, fly alien craft with no difficulty whatsoever. Again, and sometimes this alien technology seems to recognize them, because one of the default settings and safety settings that some advanced alien races have done over the countless millennia is they've made it so that the technology they utilize only works with their own kind, if you will. It doesn't work like when the reptilians or some other alien race comes along and tries to steal the technology. Well, this kind of default safety setting has somehow been passed down to these MyLabs, where
when they go into some of these craft, the craft like lights up, it seems to recognize them, and it follows their commands. Also, another thing that should be kept in mind too is there's different levels of MyLab involvement. There's people that are used as MyLabs on the surface, just in Black Ops on the surface, but there's still MyLabs. They're used in outer space ops. But there is an element within some MyLabs. Remember, we are the sum of all of our parts. There is no past, present, and future. There is only the eternal now. And we all have counterparts of ourselves, just in slightly different frequencies, slightly different out of phase realities, if you will. But we are the sum of all of our parts. Within us, at some level, we still have all this institutional knowledge. We still have this celestial knowledge. We still have these metaphysical abilities. So keep that point in mind when we talk about people that are, taught to fly craft, taught to utilize alien technology, et cetera, et cetera. These controllers, military controllers, seem to know, based on the DNA profile of these people, which alien groups they're descended from, which alien groups that they seem to have contact with. And that's a hooded kind of entity that the Pat had seen. Jorge Martin, the great Puerto Rican researcher, if you go to the Cosmic Switchboard, to my knowledge, I have the only English language interview around with that man right there. And he talks about the underground, undersea alien bases, the ongoing interaction between deep black elements of the military and aliens in Puerto Rico. Okay, and again, if you want to sign up and be a member for 80 Australian dollars, along with the consult with yours truly, please, we'll be here tomorrow, so please either approach me or approach Kylie, and we'll set you up with that. Okay, reptilians. There are essentially three different types of reptilians, and they are saurian beings, lizard-like, serpentine, in appearance. There's the subterranean type, and they literally live in the large cavern systems underground. Sometimes they have quite modern facilities and installations underground. There are the extraterrestrial variety, which literally come here from other worlds in our cosmos, in this plane of existence. They travel here in stargates, or they travel here in spaceships, or both. And then there's the interdimensional variety, where these beings tend to stay like in the lower fourth dimension, although because they're masters of frequency and resonance and can alter their density, they can even go into higher dimensions if need be. And they are not all mutually exclusive. Some beings are extraterrestrial and interdimensional. Bill Hamilton had debriefed one of his sources, a guy who worked on an alien craft recovered in Vietnam in 1958, and his source told him, based on their analysis of this particular craft, that some of these craft are not just from other solar systems and star systems in our cosmos. Some of them are from entirely different universes, because within those craft are what they describe as a transspatial resonator, or an interspatial resonator. I think it's a transspatial resonator. And what it is think of two soap bubbles side by side, and each one pulses or beats at a slightly different rate or frequency as the other. So they're essentially and effectively two separate bubbles. Now, to go from within one bubble to the next, what these aliens in these craft do is they adjust the transspatial resonator to modify their frequency density of the craft and themselves, so they're able to go from one entirely different universe or dimension into another one, okay? And that capability is reflected in some of these reptilians, that they have the ability to be interdimensional, but they can also densify themselves and become corporeal in our physical 3D. So they are not all mutually exclusive. There have been efforts in the past to say, oh no, there's no extraterrestrials, it's all interdimensional, which neatly sidesteps the whole hardware issue I talked about in the first half, where they've had all this technology they've recovered for so long and are well into the operational phase. They're not just experimental. Subterranean, extraterrestrial, interdimensional. I always thought that was an interesting statuette there, because I'll show you a sketch later on where a reptilian being actually waves one of those wands around. That was found, I think, in Iraq. And I found these images on the internet, Google Images or something like that. Kudos to whoever the artists were or the people who created them. Reptilians are the controlling factor. We reside within their sphere of influence. The reptilians are still a taboo subject in the field of ufology, in the field of alien encounters. It could be due to some deep-seated archetypal hang-ups or issues. For whatever reason, even to this day in this field, there are some people who pass themselves off as alien abduction researchers or alien encounter researchers that blithely ignore the presence of the reptilians. And I'll go into more detail about this, but they managed to exert control on this planet through the creation of these hybridized genetic bloodlines of theirs, these hybrid bloodlines, which they manage over time to put in all strata of society, all the key influential decision-making positions around the world. Often it's not, they're man or woman by reptilian or Draco-human hybrids. One time I went to a therapist. There was an alien abduction / therapist meeting in my old stomping ground, San Jose, California. At the time I was living in San Diego, working at that airbase. And my colleague, Eve Lorgan, somebody who's familiar with her work, she was invited to take part in a panel of alien abduction researchers and therapists in the San Francisco Bay Area. So she invited me, I tagged along. And it was a 2-day event, and after the first day, we all, went out to a restaurant, and we were sitting around various tables and booths. And as is my wont at times, I began talking about reptilian abductions because no one was talking about reptilians during this whole panel discussion. Not once did the subject come. All we hear are grays sometimes, grays, and grays. I call it the gray areas of ufology. There are some researchers like David Hopkins, David Jacobs, and before him, Bud Hopkins. They would have you believe that there are only two types of beings. There's like a gray, and then there's like a human hybrid, and like all points in between. Some hybrids look more ET than human, some hybrids look more human than ET, but essentially it's only grays and humans, excuse me. And that's patently absurd. Within the context of a single alien encounter, someone could see a mantis being, an insectoid, like a blue being, a tannish being. In outline and in form, they could look gray-like, but their color could be different. And I've had encounters with reptilian grays. These are like a crossbreed between the reptilians and the grays. And these grays have clawed hands. So keep that point in mind, because there are some people that have you believe that there are only grays or only zetas, right? And getting back to that story, we went to this restaurant and we were talking about aliens, and I got fed up with it. It was the same old stuff. I started talking about reptilians. And I noticed my colleague, Eve Lorgan, kind of like giving me this wink and like raising her eyebrow and kind of, what's she on about, right? So I look over, and then it turns out she was like nodding in this direction. And then I look over, and one of the therapists, one of the alien abduction therapists, was sitting there spasmodically jerking, right? Like spazzing out, uncontrollably. Afterwards, I talked to Eve, I go, what was that all about? She says, the moment you started talking about reptilians, this woman started spazzing out uncontrollably. Now, this may sound harsh, this may sound judgmental, but as far as I'm concerned, someone who tries to pass himself off as an alien abduction therapist or researcher who, upon the mere mention of the word reptilians, goes into these spasmodic fits uncontrollably, is not qualified to presume to go around helping people about alien abductions, because the reptilians are the primary abducting force. What the reptilians do is they manage to exert what amounts to cosmic vassalage over a number of different ET races. And the reptilians have long been in the genetic cloning game. So they've created these hybrid variants of themselves, excuse me, to basically act as their minions. Like a lot of the Grey factions work for the reptilians. The Greys do a lot of the heavy lifting insofar as the abductions, the medical work, etc., etc. But really, they get their marching orders from the reptilians. And some of the ET factions that work for the reptilians, they may work for the reptilians, but they're also trying to carve out their own little niche. They've got their own little hybridization project going on to try to extend the lifespan, duration of their own civilization. So they're operating within a reptilian sphere of influence. They're trying to carve out their own little piece of the pie, but they still answer to the reptilians. And another type of reptilian is the Draco, the dreaded Dracs or Dracos. And these are what they would have called in the old days gargoyles. They're reptilian beings, but they have wings sprouting out from between their shoulder blades. And I've had encounters with the Draco and others that I know. Now, I should point out that at the outset, there are entire planets full of good reptilians. Again, I'm not talking about the good reptilians here. There are what I call incarnational infiltrations, where at an oversoul, higher self level, an individual, usually with consultation from higher spiritually evolved beings, they willfully, purposefully decide to incarnate as a reptilian or a Draco. Because the intention is, over time, they pass on their genetic seed, the morphic resonance, and they create a bloodline, if you will. And they may even incarnate into their own future generation, their own bloodline, which they themselves created. And over time, over vast, countless millennia, some of these reptilians may decide to turn over a new leaf and, be good. Now, we know that in our earthly incarnations, some of you were samurai, some of you were Romans, some of you were Vikings, and you may have done things that, you wouldn't approve of these days. But for whatever reason, you needed to experience that. You needed to learn the command, control, strategy aspect of things. You needed to learn how to, what it's like to stand in the shield wall, right? And that's why we need to be forgiving ourselves and forgiving of all of our past lives too. We've been made to compelled to do things, even in our current incarnations, that we normally wouldn't do, but we're under all these stresses in our environment and everything else. So, again, we're the sum of all of our parts. So if some of you deliberately chose to be a reptilian in the past incarnation, and you come back in this one, and you still have within your soul profile, if you will, reptilian, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You'll have the ability to detect their presence. You have the ability to relate to someone who's under malign reptilian influence and act accordingly, right? So I want to make it very clear that there are good reptilians out there that do appear to people. We call them messengers. They show up, they leave a cryptic message, and they leave. You never see them again. And I've known of cases where reptilians have helped people against the military that was messing with them, or against their main reptilian group, where these reptilians that were helping people were like renegades. They were rogues, and they were accordingly punished when the rest of the reptilians found out about it. So I know that there are reptilians that are good, and so I'm not disputing that. And this notion of shapeshifting, it's real, but shapeshifting is not necessarily a bad thing. It's an operational capability. I would love to be able to shapeshift at any ET I used to be, right? And also, as far as shapeshifting is concerned, people don't only shapeshift momentarily into reptilians and back, but they can shapeshift into a wolf being, they can shapeshift into a feline being, right? So shapeshifting is not a bad word. It's not something to be scared of. It's well embedded in the lore and the folklore of all the peoples all over the world. So, I want to demystify this whole concept of reptilians. There's no point and reason to be scared of it. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. The drawing on the left, I forget who provided that drawing for me, but those are really good drawings I found online. And let me talk a bit about reptilians and some of their capabilities. They are masters of frequency and resonance. They can be invisible in the visible spectrum. awake upon a surface, such as a mattress, such as a shag carpet. You can look down, you can see a reptilian, the three-clawed footprint of a reptilian, but you cannot see them. I've known a case where a friend of mine she was having a lot of reptilian problems, and she's psychic. She's descended from Socorro Indians that come from northern Mexico. If you read the Don Juan Carlos Castaneda books, Don Juan was a Yaqui Indian from the Socorro part of Mexico. And she had the second sight. She could look at somebody and tell if there was a reptilian entity or any other kind of entity, and then taking that person up as a host. I'll be talking a lot about hosts in this part of the discussion. A host is someone who is basically taken up by another entity. And people can be taken up as a host by the Greys. They can be taken up as a host by a mantis being, a little hairy troll-looking guy. It varies. So someone can be a host, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're taken up as a host by a reptilian or a Draco. And this woman was laying in bed, and she could see a reptilian right next to her because she had that second sight. Her husband, her skeptical husband, was laying right next to him. He could not see the reptilian. Now, this reptilian had a fascination with my friend's long black hair, beautiful long black hair. And she was laying in bed, sitting up actually, and the reptilian had grabbed her hair and stretched it out and was running his fingers, his claws beneath her tresses, and it was creating this undulating wave-like action on her hair. Now, her husband, the skeptic, couldn't see the reptilian, but he could see the hair extending out and the waves going through it from where the reptilian was like stroking her hair. You see, reptilians don't need craft to travel around in. They simply open up portals. And very common portal entries in the household are wardrobes and what they call in America closets. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I mean, there's many stories in our lore about closets and wardrobes where entities come out of. I used to do reptilian stakeouts back in the old days in the high desert of Southern California, the Victorville, Barstow area. This same gal I was just talking about, the reptilian was playing with her hair. I used to spend the night in the bedroom that had the most activity. The whole house was being besieged by reptilians, and she also was a Milab too. It was a whole nother issue. And in the children's bedroom, there was an energetic portal there. Now, when you slid the sliding door open of the wardrobe and you looked in, you would see like a bunch of coat hangers, a bunch of throw rugs, a clothes hamper, no room whatsoever. Nevertheless, in that particular room, the reptilians would come out of a portal. And the age range of these reptilians varied in this house. Sometimes I wouldn't call them youngsters, immature ones, smaller ones. This particular reptilian race, when they were fully grown, they were 6 to 7 feet high, very robust, big chests, big arms, very rapacious, as I'll talk about shortly. They have this predilection for sexually assaulting human females. And so at this household, they varied in range from the immature ones that were small. We call them baby Godzillas, and that's kind of what they look like. And then you have the larger ones. And we used to, me and my colleague, used to take turns. Like one night he would sleep in the bed, I'd sleep on the floor in the sleeping basket. The next night, he'd sleep on the floor, I'd sleep on the bed. And there were times when we were there that in the middle of the night, the reptilians would come out. And I'd woken up, laying on the floor, to see a very large reptilian looming over me. And I'd be paralyzed, wouldn't be able to move, wouldn't even be able to make so much as a squeaking noise. And my friend would just be sleeping there, completely oblivious to it. And those little immature reptoids were quite mischievous. They used to do things. Like, I used to spend 2, 3, 4 days there at a time because they were having a lot of activity. That's where the action was, so I went, called reptilian stakeouts. On one occasion, I told this story before, I was laying in bed, and then I heard a rustling noise coming from the wardrobe, right? And the sun was just starting to rise in the east. I immediately sat up, looked towards the wardrobe, and suddenly, bop, bop, on my left and my right cheek and my face was punched and knocked out. It was one of those little reptoids that had knocked me out, basically. And I'm glad he didn't claw me, because they do that too. But, you know, the point of relevance is that these beings, when, like, the mother would walk into the room and see her little daughter playing with one of these little immature reptoids, the reptoid would run into the closet and disappear. And when you look at the closet, again, it was just a very packed, no room, a bunch of drugs, a bunch of hangers, you know. And what I did was, some of you are familiar and may have even gone to the International UFO Congress, founded by Bob Brown. And Bob Brown happened to have a connection, a remote viewer that used to work for the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon's in-house multi-service intelligence agency. And I talked to Bob about it, and he said, come up with some photos, take some Polaroids, and I did. And I sent them to Bob, and Bob turned around and he forwards these Polaroid snapshots to this remote viewer. Didn't tell her what she was looking at. She just took a look at these photos, scanned them, and she said immediately, there's an energetic portal at the base, at the bottom, at the back of this wardrobe. At the bottom is a hole where these entities, and she described them, these reptilians come in and out. See, what the family had done, because my friend came from a Catholic background, they thought they can bring a priest into the house to bless the place, and these critters would go away. It didn't work that way. After the priest went in there and did his thing, right, the reptilians basically went berserk to the point where nobody was sleeping in that bedroom anymore, right? The kids weren't sleeping in there, and the whole house was in a state of high anxiety. That's why I was sleeping there, to be with that family, to help hold space for them. So, the point of relevance is that it was a portal entry. That was at the bottom of that wardrobe. Another place where these entities like to come through, and not just reptilians, but other entities, is, think of a stairwell. Think of the space beneath the stairwell. Sometimes there'll be like a storage room in there, or, you know, a little room. Sometimes entities will come out from beneath the stairwell. And sometimes these entities will leave a residue. For whatever reason, when they pass through, like the wall of a wardrobe, enter into our space, or come through the space in the stairwell, they leave a residue. And it's been described sometimes like a brownish kind of, you know, fluid that's kind of congealed on the wall. Sometimes it's reddish, kind of blood-like, but it's not blood, it's something else. Sometimes they can even leave little parts of their skin. I've known cases where somebody had a tussle with a reptilian, pushed them into a screen door, and then later on they checked the screen door and they found little organic pieces of matter and stuff. So these entities will leave traces or signs of their passing. I spoke about Bill Hamilton and his partner Pat Hamilton. They showed me a photo of their shag carpet. They lived in the Antelope Valley. I can't remember if it was Lancaster or it was Palmdale. These dusty little towns over there, not too far from Edwards Air Force Base and not too far from Antelope Valley. In fact, it is the Antelope Valley. And he was an investigator. He developed a lot of sources in the underground bases there. She was a MILAB, was having reptilian military problems. When Pam's reptilian comes around, she begins to hear Morse code beeps in her left ear. And some people describe hearing high-pitched tones, either in their head or in their left ear. She starts to hear beeps. And when she starts to hear these beeps, she knows that the reptilian is tuning in on her, is going to make an appearance at some point. And so, what happened on this particular occasion was that they wake up in the morning and they find this plant. It wasn't like a rubber tree plant. It was a proper plant in a pot that was next to the wall. And the plant had kind of laid over, dead. Kind of like when you see the authentic crop circles where heat was applied at the base of the plant and then it's bent over, it's kind of woven in. Well, that's what happened to this little tree in this pot. It just, the base of it, something like a picture of this. And there was a reptilian, big reptilian footprint with the 3 claws, and there was a footprint as if it had walked through the wall. So, okay, this is the wall, and then there's a footprint going in this direction in the thick shag carpet. Here's a little tree that's keeled over dead. And so we talked about it, and what must have happened was that reptilian created a portal entry in that wall, walked through, left an impression on the shag carpet, and killed that tree. Right? So these reptilians are masters of frequency and resonance. They can alter their density, and they can appear or disappear. And sometimes we're the digital digicam age. Some people I know have taken pictures of reptilians because they may have that third eye, etheric vision. They see a reptilian walking down their hallway. They follow it. They take a picture, and then in the picture you can see kind of an outline of a reptilian. You can see the furniture or the wall behind it, but you can clearly also see an outline. So we live now in the camera age, the cell phone age, where you can photo document a lot of this stuff.
Wife, he said you must forsake mother and father.
And because they have this ability to alter their density, they can shapeshift. They can assume the guise of a Nordic being. They can assume the guise of a tall Brit.
Than me, that I've been east to west 3 times in the last several years since 2018, and I'm back east for probably the final time before all this starts to go down. And I don't know.
Let me let the listeners know something. I forgot to post your YouTube channel in the description box below the video. I posted your PayPal link. The money, let the people know that the donation will not go to me. That the email is not my email. It's your email. When I get done with, and I forgot I haven't used StreamYard for a long time because I want to post the people's comments when they post in the chat, so it shows on the screen. I forgot how to do that. I'm sorry, folks. I haven't used StreamYard for a long time. Let the listeners know that the money will be going to you, Matthew, if people donate. Matthew is homeless, and he's with Daniel.
Whatever is given is always given for the purpose of having what we need to continue our ministry to Jesus Christ through the preaching of the gospel. And preaching the gospel on college campuses. We still want to go up to Pittsburgh. If we have time to go to the University of Pittsburgh, we'd like to head over to Columbus, 2-hour drive to get preach at the University of Ohio. Youngstown State University is nearby. Marshall University is not far from here either. University of Maryland ain't far from here. A lot of places I ain't been to yet. And I am a former college professor, so I feel like I've been gifted by the Holy Spirit to be able to talk to these college students and tell them, you ain't got no future in America in education. It's time for you to value your relationship with Christ and get your salvation, because there ain't much time left before the return of Christ. He's coming. He's coming.
It's breaking up some here on my end.
I need to get up into you, okay? How's that better? Is that better?
Yeah,
No?
much better.
All right.
Better. I can hear you now.
So, and also going to homeless people. I'm going to tell you something. A lot of people out here are homeless because they're targeted too. They tell me things they go through, but they don't want to believe they're being targeted by the government and they're not being experimented upon by the government. Like, I know what they're doing. So, talking to homeless people is a good way to pass the Matthew 25 smell test of it. people, go out there and do it. Quit sitting in your living room and quit just, yes, doing research is important. Not do a lot of research. Thomas does. He works hard.
Yeah, I agree.
And quit just.
Matthew, I agree with what you're saying. The Bible says that Jesus commands that we need to get the gospel message out. Matthew, I agree with what you're saying. The Bible says that Jesus commands that we need to get the gospel message out, all of us, out in the streets, in season and out of season.
They're in
We need
America.
to preach the word and share
Here's the
about
homeless
Jesus,
tonight.
even if it's just
So
one-on-one.
that doesn't work.
It don't have to be a whole crowd, but it don't have to be a whole crowd of people the way Matthew does it, like at colleges and universities. If you go to Matthew's channel, and I forgot to, at the end of this video, I'll post several of his YouTube channels because he hasn't been on YouTube for a long time. He got taken down on censor, you know.
My main channel got taken down. I've got 5 others, and I've got
Let's see if I
I
can
don't have
join.
much on a couple of other outlets. I have been badly injured, and I get a lot of directed energy attacks. I get more than you'll ever. In fact, I got one last night on a bus. In the bus, there's always an indicator back here in my shoulder where I know I've been chipped. I can guarantee you I've been chipped back here. And every time I feel it in that spot, I know I'm being zapped. It's a dead giveaway. You may have a spot that hurts.
Yeah, I get also where I hear like Travis, the TI, Travis that's in Wyoming. Matthew met Travis in person, and Travis here, and I got it on this backup channel. I got the interview of Travis, and Travis hears it sounds like a generator, like an engine in your head, like a rrr all the time. So when I wear this, it kind of helps for shielding. This is the only, I don't know a lot about shielding. This is
The
the
foil
only way
doesn't work.
I know about shielding. So I know aluminum, there's a lot of truth in, you know, that I found out through Scott. Yeah, I know it looks funny, man, but it does work. It helps. It does help. I don't get as much headaches when I wear it. When I wear it, I don't get so many headaches. And then when I wear it, I notice my migraine headache goes away. So that's why I'm getting a lot of migraine headaches. So there's a lot of truth that but you need to use several layers. Let me take it off and kind of show it's sorry, my hair's kind of a mess for wearing this. You gotta use like several layers. I use several layers for shielding. And Matthew's going through the same thing. Julia Thompson, I got some of her video. Hello, Devina Grace, welcome to the chat. Special guest for people, anybody just coming in the chat. Matthew, I met him in person. I got a YouTube video when I picked him up in Carlsbad, New Mexico. And when we're
not going to discuss the details of it. Bygones are bygones.
Yeah, no, I won't get into all that. But anyways, yes, I just helped out Matthew recently. I kind of wired them some funds, not a whole lot, but I helped them out. So there, and the link below doesn't go to me, but the email is Matthew's email for a confirmation. That's Matthew. Can you please tell them that about the links below in the description box? Let the listeners know.
And I think in the chat I can put my email address in here. That'll go with my PayPal. So okay.
Yeah, post your PayPal that I posted in the description, and post your email. Matthew, I won't give his location. Matthew is back east.
I'm in Morgantown, West Virginia. I don't care. Government knows about it.
And I'm out west. I'm in the state of New Mexico, and Matthew is streaming live from Morgantown, West Virginia.
Oh, by the way, I walked Daniel and I walked hundreds of miles in the West Texas desert east of El Paso, getting harassed by the FBI, the CIA. We had a little chihuahua with us all the way up until Bristol, Virginia, and we got her into a new house with a bunch of chihuahuas.
I might have to, hang on, I'm going to connect my phone to the battery charger.
Yeah.
I'm going to connect my phone to the battery charger. Try talking, Matthew.
I can talk. Yo puedo
I hear you.
hablar.
You're good.
Yo puedo hablar. Sí, señor.
Yeah.
No, listen, in fact,
Muy bueno. I don't know much Spanish.
Brother Daniel and I actually got kicked out of Harrisonburg, Virginia, where there's another targeted individual. We met him once. He was institutionalized in the same place they got me into in Virginia called, what's that called? Doggone it. Okay, I don't know why, the Pavilion. Anyway, or something like that. Anyway, he showed me his records, and and Harrisonburg, Virginia is one of the meanest. The cops are literally Nazis. They just pick anybody off the street who's disabled or autistic, and they just throw them to the ground. They charge them with shoplifting when they didn't even do it. They do all kinds of wicked experiments in Harrisonburg, Virginia. We had to walk south and get out of that town. They were trying to kill us because I exposed the intersection by the bus hub there, the intersection of Gay Avenue and Mason Street, or Mason Avenue and Gay Street. So Gay and Mason. And that's really what they are. That's really what they are.
Wow, that's quite a name. Those are street names?
In Harrisonburg, Virginia, where we were until February, yeah. There's the major intersection by the bus.
I'm losing you, Matthew.
The major intersection by the bus hub is Gay and Mason. I took a photo.
I'm losing you.
Are you there? They don't want me to say that. Are you there?
I'm losing you, Matthew.
S.2IE. Are you there? Am I losing you?
Yeah, I lost you. No sound.
That's crazy. I'm sitting here talking. What about now? Oh yeah, you're being tampered with. Okay, I hope you're able to hear me now.
Okay, try it again, Matthew.
I hope you're able to hear me now. You there?
I lost you.
Oh goodness, I'm talking. I'm talking.
Wow, this is not good. Can anyone hear how's my sound in the chat? Can anyone give me a sound check? Is my sound working? Can you hear Matthew? Can somebody give us a sound check, please?
Who can hear me? Anybody in the chat? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sound check 1.
Good. Let me try to move my phone. Maybe it's where I'm at. Look.
And I'm in a lot of pain too. 58 years old, it ain't easy to live like this, you know? Gotta hold my leg up. What about now?
Yeah. Okay, I got you back here better, and I went up too. On my end, on my screen, it said something went wrong, and then I got back into the StreamYard studio.
All right. So anyway, the major intersection by the bus hub in Harrisonburg, Virginia, is Gay and Mason. The street's Gay and Mason. No kidding. They put it up there right for you to see. I have photos of that upon request. I can send anybody who wants the proof of that. And at
You know, Matthew, that's not by accident. You know that?
Oh, I know. Listen. I have exposed predictive programming in El Paso about La Palma and HARP and everything. I've got a video on that on a prophecy channel. Here in Morgantown, I have something on Facebook for you all that I need to put up soon on YouTube about predictive programming in Morgantown, West Virginia. And I hear that there's a video game out there somewhere. If somebody can verify this for me, that has it programmed that Morgantown will be a target by the Russian missiles. Yeah. Nice to know that you got goodies.
I'm losing you, Matthew.
Okay, what about now?
I lost you again. You're sounding.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know if y'all can hear me on my end.
I can hear you. It's getting. This is. They're killing my back. Okay, I don't know why. It's not working out too well here tonight, like I'd like it to. You're still not able. Yeah, I think your tower switches locations. I've noticed that before, Thomas. I hope you can hear me now. Once you get back on, you'll be able to hear me again. Okay, I know you can probably hear me now again. You can probably hear me now.
I hear you now.
All right, but
wow, it really.
What about now?
Better.
Okay. Anyway.
Better.
I have gone through some of the most bone-jarring directed energy attacks. One in Naples, Florida, 2018, late. I've also gone through it in Springfield, Missouri, on a bus. I've gone through that, and last night I went through it again on a bus. And I'm going to tell you one of the best ways, which is hard for me to do, but it might be easier for the rest of you, because I don't have access to what maybe a lot of you could, is to consume a more alkaline diet. Alkaline water or distilled water will help you out, and a lot of kale will also help. A lot of other greens, wheatgrass powder, a lot of other things that you could do research on for yourself, because I'm not the ultimate nutritionist. But that's one of the best ways to stave off directed energy attacks. But the government started taking my money, so I can't buy the things. I have to take whatever I can go stand in line for at lunch or something like that. But if you have access to funds and you can go get some of these things to have a more alkaline diet, get online and do your research. That's one of the best ways to counteract the directed energy attacks. I remember in South Carolina and North Carolina, I discovered that if you're taking a shower by the window, they can actually zap the directed energy while you're taking a shower and electrocute you to death. I learned that one too. You didn't think I knew that, did you?
I'm not going to stay, Matthew. I'm going to pretty shortly. I'm going to end the live stream. So sure. Let them know what you and Daniel have been. Share a little brief, just a little brief, but not too long. Just let the people know what you've been doing, and about your YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, I have several of them, and I'm trying to recover, but I have a lot of predictive programming on some of the channels. I've got preaching, I've got some Bible teaching, and I've got a lot of videos that got taken down from the main channel that need to go up on other channels from the past. Only selected ones given time constraints. I've got some prophecies that'll knock your socks off on BitChute about the UT Texas Tower of Doom and the Garden of Abominations that are coming, and the Dragon, and Austin Q2 Dragon Stadium. Now, Brother Daniel has been with me since April 2021, when I picked him up in Missoula. Stayed there for 3 months, moved on down to Colorado, where we preached together in Denver, and then went back down to Texas. He met my father, and then came back up to New Mexico, and I've just been all over the place. And it really does just about kill a 58-year-old man. But I am blessed to be able to do this. So Brother Daniel is very gifted in the Word and in prayer. He's very gifted in wisdom and discernment beyond his years. And I don't compliment anybody, but I commend him highly to anybody.
I'm losing.
I commend him highly to anybody.
I got you back.
In the fellowship. So, and I want to conclude my remarks by saying that everything that goes to my PayPal link goes to Brother Daniel and myself, not just
Losing
me.
you.
Not just me. Okay, you there? Hello? You there? Because I wanted to finish this. You there? You there? Hello?
I got you back, I think.
Okay, good. How about that? Now better?
Yeah, I was losing you.
Okay, let me conclude
Real
real quickly. Let me conclude really quickly because I'm going to have to go too. Everything that you send to PayPal doesn't just go to me. It goes to Brother Daniel too. He's been with me, and he gets.
Post it in the chat.
Yeah, it's in there already. And Awaken World, hey, I remember you. Yeah, my main channel got shut down. Awaken World. They shut me down big time. I'm exposing the Southern Baptist Convention too much. That's a bunch of closet gay perverts. They don't like it. I've exposed Mark Dever's plagiarism. I've exposed a lot of the Jesuit foundings of the denomination and the Freemasons. I'm exposing things about the Southern Baptist Convention that nobody was ever supposed to say from outside their halls.
Just be careful what you say. Just tell them. I'm gonna let them know. I'm gonna post your links below in the description box. I'm gonna post when I get done with this broadcast. I'm going to leave the chat open. This video, I've been on a lot of videos. I've been not allowing no comments because of a lot of shills.
Yeah,
There's a lot of shills out there on YouTube. So, but on this video, I'll see how it goes, and I'll leave the comments open. I need to edit it out when I get done, and I'll post your links. So come back in a few. Give me about a half hour when I get done. When me and Matthew stop the live stream, and I'm gonna post a lot of Matthew's videos, the links, and I'm gonna post Matthew's BitChute. I haven't been on YouTube that much. I'm on BitChute. That's where you can find me, and
Hey, where are you at? Hey, I'm alone here. Oh. Well, I don't know where Thomas went. He must have got zapped out, but there he comes back. I see him coming.
Okay, I think I'm back.
Yeah,
sorry, I think you lost me.
I know.
Okay, I'm gonna post Matt. I'm also found on BitChute. You can find my BitChute link below in the description box. I'm gonna post more links when me and Matthew get off the live stream. Check back, and I'm gonna post a bunch of links below in the description. Right? Yeah, Matthew. Below in the description.
Name.
Share about Jesus, even if it's just one-on-one. Share
Hallelujah. I got the email.
Morgantown. What is it like?
Last couple
What's the
days,
weather like up there?
It's gotten into the high
Morgantown.
40s here at night. Last couple of days,
Morgantown.
it's gotten into the
At night.
It's
High
been in the
40s. Yeah, it cooled down. Dude, it cooled down here.
Yeah.
at night.
Yeah, because you're in the desert.
Yeah, it cooled down. Dude, it cooled down
But yeah.
here.
So anyway,
Yeah, because you're in the desert.
it's gonna probably get warmer, but you know, I really am believing
So anyway,
that very bad times are
it's gonna
coming
probably get
for
warmer, but you know,
the Atlantic
I really
coast.
am believing
I have end time
that very
dreams,
bad
and other
times
people
are
have
coming
that
for
very bad times are coming to the Atlantic coast.
I have end time
You got to
dreams
tell
and
your
other
loved
people
ones,
have
get
that
out of Virginia Beach.
Very bad
Get
times
out.
are coming to the Atlantic
I'm
coast.
losing you.
Out.
You got to tell your
Yeah, they
loved
don't wanna
ones,
hear
get
that party.
out of Virginia Beach.
They don't want to hear that
Out.
part either.
I'm losing you.
If you're in your
I'm losing you, Matthew.
They don't want to hear that part. If you're
Be
there,
I'm losing you, Matthew. Yeah, but I'm losing you.
are you there?
I'm here.
Right.
Chocolate almond milk. Yeah, but I'm losing you.
I'm here.
I hope
Chocolate
you can hear
almond
me
milk.
so that I can.
I'm losing you, Matthew.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about it.
I hope you can hear me so
Shut
that I can.
I'm losing you,
Somebody please
Matthew.
indicate in the chat.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about it.
Because I can't do anything about what's going on right now. And I don't see any reaction from the comments.
Can everybody hear Matthew?
Indicate that here. I hope you can hear me. I don't see any reaction of anybody you can hear me or no. No, I don't see. I can't do anything about what's going on right now here. Okay, and I don't see any reaction from the comments. Uh-oh, he got taken out. Thomas got taken out.
Wow.
Can anybody hear? Yeah, we're gonna have to do a better job of this in the future. We're gonna have to do a better job about this in the future. I hope you can hear me now.
You see how they're hacking in.
Well, Matthew,
Yeah.
share some of your last minute thoughts.
Last minute thoughts are: tell your friends, get away from
He's
the
not
Atlantic
using
coast
StreamYard.
ASAP. Get out of there. It's going down real soon. And be prepared. And be 5 wise virgins, not 5 foolish. That's my comments.
Okay, I hope
See if
you
he
guys.
gets
Sorry,
attention.
I apologize, everybody. It sounds like we had problems with the live stream. Maybe with the replay. I'm going to listen to the replay shortly, and I need to
I'm
edit out.
trying to join,
There,
but
I got you back on camera. You came back. Well, you pop off and then
he's
I
not
don't know,
looking
man,
at
it just
backstage or
disappears
StreamYard.
and goes off grid, then it goes back on grid here on the live stream, then it goes off grid. I don't know, crazy. This live stream is being messed with tonight. Okay, share some last minute thoughts.
Okay, like I said, get away from the Atlantic and I think he's never going to come. He's returning soon.
I'm backstage,
That's my
but
final
he's
remark.
not pressing his buttons.
Yes, and Jesus is our only hope.
Blue, it's me,
Yep,
Awake
if
in
he
UK.
wasn't, I'd go back out into the world and I'd turn over for these sodomites and I'd go take one of their accounting jobs again. But I'm not going to do that. Anyway, I do have to go also, brother. And blessings to all of the rest of you.
He
Try to
can't
take the last
use
one out here
his
about
StreamYard
30
properly.
minutes. So just contact me.
I'm looking you.
Okay.
Their connections, look, they're hacking them too.
Bye.
It's targeting individuals.
Okay, thank you, Matthew, for joining me on the live stream. God bless. Hey, Matthew, say a prayer before we go. Say a prayer for everyone.
Okay, so we'll stop that. And so basically he wasn't even looking
So let me indicate
in the
that here.
stream.
And
So
I'd turn
this
over
what
for these
goes on.
sodomites and I'd go take one of their accounting jobs again.
This what
But
goes
I'm not
on
gonna
with
do
target
that.
individuals worldwide. It's not
Anyway,
just me.
I do have to go also, brother. And blessings to all of the rest of you. I'm going to try to take the last bus out of here in about another minute. So contact me if
I'm
you want.
losing you.
They get hacked too.
Adios. Gotta go. Bye. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Matthew, for joining me on the live stream. God bless. Hey,
All right,
Matthew,
shalom.
say a prayer before we go. Say a prayer for everyone. Say a prayer.
If you can hear me. In the name of Yahushua, be it done. In the name of Yahushua, be it done. That the listeners
A blue rain.
God will
I know what
armed
your name is.
with the full armor of God, and that might and power and strength in everybody in the Holy Spirit and bless them with the precious anointing of oil of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
In the name of Yahushua, be it done.
All right, Matthew, let's give everybody a high five at the same time. Ready? A high five on the count of 3. And everybody, please hit the thumbs up button if you like the video. If you like Matthew being on for the first time as a live guest with me, please hit the smash
But
the
you should
thumbs
use
up
your
like
symbol
button.
properly.
Get ready? Countdown. 3, 2, 1. Everybody hit the high five and hit the high five, everyone. All right. I'm going to end the live
Wearing
stream.
that hat.
And
It
hopefully,
doesn't
maybe you could get on more often and give some updates and let people know what's going on. Okay, and I'll post Matthew's BitChute channel and his YouTube links when I get done. I'll post more info below in the description box. And thank you everybody for joining in on live stream. And give me a thumbs up, man.
Go Benjamin. Shalom.
Thumbs up, man. Shalom. Okay, I'm going to end the live stream, and thank you, Matthew, for
Well,
joining
it
me.
didn't show
Alright.
black
I'm
people in the
stopping the
background. He
live
put a
stream.
link in, but he put the
All right, God
invite.
bless and shalom.
Wow, bless him. Joe Biden's wife and daughter sanctioned by Russia. Oh my gosh. This is getting ridiculous what's going on. Let's listen to this. I can't share it, I can listen in. Don't think it's going to work. It's a happy me also. I think so. Yeah.
US President Joe Biden's wife and daughter are being sanctioned by Russia. First Lady Jill Biden, Ashley Biden, and 23 other Americans have been named. The Kremlin has announced they will be banned from entering its territory indefinitely. Miss Biden is in Madrid alongside other world leaders, including our Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is, of course, central to those discussions.
Oh, that's nothing new. This is all ridiculous. Right, let's go back to what I was trying to share. Oh, the world is upside down. They're radiating my ears right now. Radiation. I can't find it now. Where was it? I think it was on a different channel. Yes, it was. Right, I'm going to screen share the rest of this. Any evidence of what's bigger picture beyond it all. James Bartley. There we go.
They can assume the guise of a military person. Now, women that report encounters with reptilians in a sexual sense say that these beings can enter into their dreamscape when they're sleeping and present themselves as a former lover, current boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, someone she's got a crush on at work. And oftentimes, believe it or not, these reptilians can assume the guise of someone they know the woman has an interest in. And it runs the gamut. Bruce Springsteen, Bruce Willis, Tom Cruise, right? And they will assume that guise, and they will have intercourse with that woman. Now, the woman could wake up thinking, wow, that was an interesting, sexual dream with Tom Cruise or, take your pick. But really what's happened is that entity, because of its ability to like change its density, can even enter into the sleeping woman and then do what we call a stage managed dream, create this whole dream scenario in her mind, in her dream, and the upshot of is at the end, she winds up having sex with Tom Cruise or whoever the case may be, right? And I'll go into more detail about that also. They can also assume an amorphous black shape, like someone could wake up and they can see above them, excuse me, like this irregular, almost like a black cloud above them. But really, that's the entity itself. It's either just left the person's body or it just arrived and just happened to feel the energy and woke up. Now, in nature, there's certain animals, like tigers, for example, that when they emit a roar, it sets off a resonance within the chest cavity of the victim, whether it's an animal that it's preying on or a human, let's say. Say there's an old diseased tiger and it's developed a taste for humans. When they emit this roar, it sets off this kind of like this vibration in their chest cavity and effectively instills paralysis, right? Where the person is just paralyzed because of the roar of this tiger. Well, the reptilians have this kind of capability where they have the ability to, by their mere energy, their resonance and their frequency, they can instill paralysis in particularly the women that they're messing with. But, and I'll go into more detail about this, they don't just rape women, folks. They can also sodomize men. They can also mess with people in a variety of ways because these reptilians, they try to slot people in certain categories that they're manipulating. And I'll go into the dynamics of this. Based on what this person's psych profile is in neurology, etc., they can alter them, they can change them in certain ways. And so they instill paralysis on the woman, in our example. She may not be able to move, but she may feel a compression on her chest, right? Sometimes these reptilians can wear cloaks, they can wear hoods, they can wear they can even wear space-age uniforms. It depends on the reptilian race. Some of them are very technologically advanced. They wear utility belts. They have buttons on the utility belts. They have like weaponry, handheld weaponry. It depends. Whereas some reptilians seem to be more dinosaur-like in appearance. We call them dinos. They look like upright bipedal, more dino-looking, right? For lack of a better term. And some factions of the reptilians are very much into ritual, ceremonial magic. They're very ritualistic. David Icke always talks about the R complex, the oldest part of our brain. What's special forces actually call, folks, the lizard brain. And in some of the training, a lot of their training, they try to induce in the recruit. They want them to get a rage. So they have these recruits stand there and just scream at the top of their lungs and go in the rage mode because they want to plug them into that R complex lizard part of their brain. And so the reptilians will just manipulate certain people based on their profile, based on their neurology, and based on what they're trying to get out of the person. And inducing ritualism and the desire to delve into black magic is one of those. Some of the reptilian warrior caste actually wear body armor. Think of an ancient warrior in our past that would wear like armor, like a chest of armor. Some of them actually do that. Okay. Let me talk about a controversial aspect, which I just touched on, because by process elimination and statistical probability, some of you women probably experience this. So I'm going to go into it. We all have, to some degree or another, reptilian DNA. Again, the R complex, the lizard part of the brain. If you came into the world in normal means, somewhere in your family tree, you have reptilian bloodlines. And this is how it happened, folks. After this most recent spate of celestially driven cataclysms, 9,500 BC, thereabouts, 12,000, 13,000 years ago, which in terms of geological time, folks, was last week, okay? And now we're on the cusp once again. We're in alignment with the galactic center. We're in alignment with the galactic core. study up on Dr. Paul Laviolette, the galactic superwave emanating from the galactic core. We're at the time frame when these large celestial bodies are coming in again. After the most recent spate of celestially driven cataclysms and the survivors came out of the tunnels and cave systems, and the survivors on the mountaintops started rebuilding society again, there was not as many humans on the surface anymore. And this gave a number of ET races, particularly the reptilians, the opportunity to use through advanced genetics and through crossbreeding their DNA, and they created these hybrid bloodlines we know today. And they installed these hybrid astronomer priests to, come up with laws and enforce the laws, and they wiped out every vestige that they could find of the divine feminine, the divine mother, right? Because most of this civilizations, cultures on the surface back, before these cataclysms, many of them were matriarchal, many of them venerated and worshipped the divine mother. And so they had to switch all that around. So they created these hybrid bloodlines. They imposed alphabet language upon us, right? Because if you're talking about symbol language, you're talking about symbols that resonate and touch us at a soul level. If you impose alphabets, and there's a book out there called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, or is it the Goddess? Yeah, it's The Alphabet versus the Goddess by Leonard Susskind, I think it is. A great book if you can find it. By forcing people to use letters in lieu of symbols, you shut them into the left brain. And then you create these dogmas, rules, you create like a astronomer priesthood class of hybrids to enforce those rules, and then you have religions and everything else that goes with it. So that's what happened with the survivors on the surface. The reptilians began imbuing their DNA into these surviving bloodlines, and then that begat this whole system that we have today, right? So it's not surprised that many of us have reptilian DNA. And some of the women that have these reptilian experiences, through no fault of their own, have enough reptilian DNA. And what these reptilians do is they track these bloodlines. I call them familiars. Familiars is a family. They track these bloodlines generation after generation after generation. And through a combination of manipulating surface level unions between, a male and a female. And we see this manifesting in these elite reptilian bloodline families where they have arranged marriages, specifically pairing people with the preponderance of reptilian DNA. But out there in society, what they do is through hook and crook, they manipulate certain couples to meet each other, and because they want a certain reptilian DNA mix, and then add to that whatever reptilian genetic manipulation that they do on top of that. And so it should come as no surprise that some of the women that are reporting these reptilian encounters themselves, for lack of a better term, may be a reptilian human hybrid. And it's got nothing to do with who they are as a person, right? Because it's the soul that counts. A person can have a lot of reptilian DNA, but they could be the most peaceful, loving person you ever would meet. So it's the soul quality that's important. So in our example, this woman who may have some reptilian DNA begins having these reptilian experiences. And what happens is these reptilians will manifest either as looking like a past lover, boyfriend, assuming the guise of a Nordic spaceman, a Palladian spaceman that wants to have sex with her, whatever the case may be. Or if the reptilian is sneaky, he may come to her in her astral dreamscape when she's sleeping and dreaming. He may have intercourse with her while she's asleep. But if they want to instill the full kind of effect, because a lot of these negative entities, they're parasitic in nature. And see, we are resonators. We are resonators of energy, emotions, energy, and emotion. And it behooves these negative beings to keep us in a lower bandwidth. mired in the lower base chakras and also in a state of permanent confusion and chaos and disruption, because they can feed off that. They can feed off the anxiety and the despair and the misery that people go through. They can't feed off of us if we're always in a state of inner harmony, of balance, of serenity. Those emotions, energy and emotion, are anathema to them. I met with some of the Lakota elders, and I was talking to this young Lakota guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, I just get a reptilian before I just started manifesting love towards it, and it went away." You know, I thought that was a profound statement. The guy said, because the love vibration is something they can't do anything with. It's the fear and the lower kind of emotions that they seek to engender in people. And so they begin to manipulate people. And in our example, if they're having sex with a woman, if they really want to engender the fear response, they may just throw the disguises out the window. They're not Tom Cruise anymore. They manifest as a full-on reptilian. And in some cases, of course, it can terrify these women. But the entity will feed off that. And there's another thing also, that these reptilians and other beings have this capability too. They have a way of tapping into, call it the Akashic record, call it the information field, call it the memory banks of the woman. In real time, they can make, while they're raping that woman, they can make her relive a sexual assault she endured decades ago, maybe as a young girl. See, because in truth, there's a high consciousness at work. In our example, when that young girl was molested or abused, the abuser was a reptilian human hybrid with a preponderance of reptilian DNA. The consciousness working through that individual was reptilian, it was not human. They just have the outward guide to the human. But if you know what you're looking at, okay, hooded eyelids, high cheekbones, and I don't want to get into a witch hunt mode, because a lot of people have certain facial anatomical characteristics. But if you know what you're looking for, if you study, and I'll go into this, you study what these serial murderers, for example, look like, these lifelong career pedophiles look like, they all have a certain look to them, okay? So, get back to our example. While the woman is being raped by the reptilian can tap into her memory banks, if you will, and make her relive in real time a rape she endured years or decades before. Because that person who abused her way back when himself was a reptilian with an entity working through him.
Yeah.
And so they have this kind of instantaneous means of tapping into that information. And they can make the woman relive in real time the same body memories. They can, all that buried trauma within that woman, just by the mere presence of the reptilian, of its negative energy, can instill not only the paralysis, but it can bring out of her the real-time memories and the body memories of the trauma that created the trauma in the first place, the trauma that created the buried trauma in the first place. And in truth, also, what's interesting, too, is some of these human reptilian hybrid males who are hosts for these entities, hybrid hosts I call them, some of them have the ability to astrally rape women. They have the ability that if they meet some woman online on Facebook or some other social media or whatever the case may be, the internet is an electromagnetic conduit. Just simply connecting with that person via email or through a messenger or a chat box, that individual, that human reptilian hybrid, I call them rapetoids, they can astrally project and they can rape that woman astrally. And not only that though, but like I said earlier, some of these human hybrids, these human reptilian hybrids, can likewise make that woman relive in real time some prior sexual abuse, or conversely, somehow, because they have the means to tap into this information field, they would know what her ex-lover looks like, or what her current boyfriend looks like, or who she's got a crush with. And just like these full-blooded reptilians, these hybrids, they have to operate on the same high consciousness. They can do that. Now, there are are side effects to these reptilian rapes. It's not uncommon for women that have reptilian rape experiences to experience yeast infections, candidiasis, I think it's called, yeast infections. There's other telltale marks. Sometimes I start blabbing, I forget that I got slides. Let me just, I'll talk more about that. They leave telltale marks, like for example, they can leave the typical classic 3 parallel scratch marks, 3 straight line scratch marks down the side, down the front, down the back. Some of them can be quite long. Sometimes they have claw marks, literal claw marks. Sometimes pressure marks where in the upper biceps, in the upper inner thighs, in the sides, where it seems that pressure was exerted by these reptilians when they're pressing on the woman to hold her down or whatever the case may be. And some of the marks they leave on abductees, they can be like yellowish kind of mark, triangular sometimes, but not always. Sometimes oval, sometimes irregularly shaped, but like a yellowish tinge. I'll show some of those. The reptilians can create compulsive behaviors within people. Because I'll talk more about this in a moment. But we all have that lizard brain. We all have that reptilian autocomplex brain, the oldest part of our brain. And what they strive to do through their control of cinema, through the control of Hollywood and everything else, is keep us hopelessly mired in the lower chakras of existence, in our base and our sexual chakra. And they have the means to instill OCD thought loops, obsessive compulsive disorder thought loops. It's a big component of alien mind control, and also increasingly military mind control, is the means to instill within an individual these repetitive thought loops over and over and over and over. And if you notice, it's even worse in America. It's not so bad here. But in America, the radio stations there reinforce this OCD thought loop concept. They reinforce the entrainment of the brain. All different genres of music in America, there's only 2 corporations that own just about every radio station in America. And so all these different radio stations of every musical genre play the same 6 or 7 songs all day long. In some office settings, there's a rule, okay, you can play the radio, but everyone's got to have the radio tuned to the same station, otherwise it's chaos, right? So, but if all the radio stations in an office are tuned to the same radio station, and the radio station plays the same 6 or 7 songs over and over and over, all you got to do is walk through that office for a moment, and if you hear one of those songs, that song could be in your head all day. That's what I mean by obsessive compulsive disorders, OCD, thought loops. And what these entities do is they instill negative thought loops of hopelessness, of despair, of loneliness, of misery. And they will even go to the trouble, some of these reptilians in particular, of inducing accidents that cause back problems, lower back pain. So the person could be, in our example, could be laying on a couch with lower back pain and anguish. And remember, we're resonators, emotions, energy, and motion. So these people are laying in a bed or laying on a sofa with lower back pain and just exuding all these frequencies and emotions of anguish, of pain, of despair. They feed off that. That's like candy to them, but totally at the expense of the individual going through it. And again, one of the means of control is instilling these OCD thought loops, so keep that in mind. And there's ways to break these thought loops. Now, getting back to the reptilian rape part, if the reptilian chooses to densify a part of its anatomy, for example, the woman, if she is able to somewhat break the paralysis and say she can move her hands, and then she covers up, her reproductive parts, let's say, the entity can still rape her. She can still feel like a thrusting action going on. And it's something of a paradox, because she's laying beneath layers of bedding, dunas, blankets, night clothes. She's even got her hands over her private parts, but somehow that entity is still penetrating her. vaginally. So it shows you the ability of the entity not only to be able to densify and alter its density, but it can densify particular parts of its anatomy.
Disgusting.
For example, they can densify their claws long enough in our dimension to leave you with a nasty, nasty claw mark. That's what I mean. It's very specific how they do it.
Radiating.
Some of the places that women report having these experiences could be in their own bedroom, very common. But sometimes these entities, they're very possessive of what they consider to be their humans. They consider these women to be theirs. And even if the woman has a partner, I've known of cases where the reptilians have attacked the partner of the woman because they were jealous and possessive. And see, this is an attribute that's passed on to their hybrid serial killers, their hybrid female abusers, right? The concept of the reptilian concept of human ownership. You hear this a lot from abusive males. I own you. That marriage certificate means I own you, right? This concept of ownership all across the board. And they have that. They have this concept of ownership of the human race. Okay, I talked about some of the ways that they manifest themselves, some of the things that they do to people. Let's see, I talked about some of the side effects. Oh yes, another key aspect, and this is, you know, we're all adults here and we can talk about this kind of thing. Okay, the brain has a key component in it called the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is the impulse control center of our brains. It's the safety net. It prevents us from acting out in bizarre, aberrant, violent manner. There's a book written by Pete Early, and it's called The Serial Killer Whisperer. It's a fascinating book. I'm reading it right now. This kid suffered a traumatic brain injury, wiped out his frontal lobe, and then he, in the long recovery process, he was becoming violent. They didn't think he was going to come out of a coma. When he did come out of a coma, he was a very violent kid. And so what he did to learn more about his condition, believe it or not, he became pen pals with a number of serial killers, right? But the R complex, and in particular the frontal lobe, is what is impacted here. You see, what serial murderers have in common is they have no frontal lobe capability. They've done studies on this. Joel Rifkin was a serial murderer in America, murdered a number of women. And again, a serial murderer is a garden variety version of a reptilian human hybrid with an overabundance of reptilian DNA, which creates a certain brain, a certain neurology. All the things you hear about that go on in the Bohemian Grove and Skull and Bones, those are just high-level perps, right?
The evidence of that is when 13th December 2022, when that shapeshifter demon entity assaulted me. And I've always remembered this 22 years to date. Well, 4 years on. His eyes turned green as he tried to kill me and drain all my energy out of me. And I still don't know how I survived, but I did. Somebody's watching out for me to be tortured all these years later. It's ridiculous. But anyway, as that man was just talking about in that video, I couldn't move. So I was being strangled and being assaulted and being squashed to death, and that entity got that pleasure of life being drained out my body. And as he was doing that, his eyes, I'll never forget that, his eyes turned green. I swear to God, like snake's eyes, completely turned green. So I didn't know about all these subjects about what that video, that guy in the channel talked about, until about 6 months ago, and that individual now, he sent me evidence of certain documents and photos connected to his family too in England. But he's disappeared off the face of the earth ever since. Nobody's heard from him for about 2 weeks. So I believe he was just gathering information of people, and then, but also I'm aware that he gets set up. So I do believe that certain things is going on behind the scenes, but I can't make that public. But no, go back to the video.
They have kidnapping rings, kidnap their victims. Whereas like your garden variety serial murder, they got to go out and do these things on their own. But the point of commonality is their brains. They're hardwired differently from us. And when you remove the frontal lobe, they did studies on Joel Rifkin, the serial killer. They did scans on his brain. He had virtually no frontal lobe capacity whatsoever. And they did another test on Joel Rifkin. They found out that he was not in control of his limbs, his feet, his hands, his legs. They made him do a bunch of dexterity tests, and they found out that he just simply was not in control of his own body. So that creates a perfect storm scenario, because in this long process, I don't have the time to describe it here. I've talked about it in some of my previous lectures. You can find the lecture I gave in Roswell in 2007. I go into detail about this. And I wrote papers about this too. What happened is that the lack of frontal lobe and the inability to control one's own extremities allowed these interdimensional entities, through a long-term process of psychological, sexual, behavioral conditioning, they manipulate them. And remember, these people are already reptilian human hybrids to begin with. They manipulate them to the point where what I call an interface occurs, where the interdimensional entity can now safely and permanently take up this individual as a host. And what they do at that point is they begin downloading all these images of sadistic imagery into their minds. Violent porn images, violent sadistic images, and you hear this as a commonality from serial murderers, that they keep getting these movies in their head of all these violent images and whatnot, and they can't stop them. Well, it's because the entities that's taken up as a host keeps downloading all these sadistic images into their mind. And because they don't have control over their limbs, like I was just saying about Joel Rifkin, it's very easy at a certain point, unless the person seeks help or figures it out, an entity that just effectively take that person over. And it can only be for a moment, where something came over me and I did this and I did that, right? The devil made me do it, kind of thing. And it could be a one-off where they just have a moment where they lose control. You hear this also from serial killers. Ted Bundy talked about how the monster would take over. And other serial murderers have talked about how their consciousness would step out of their body while it perpetrated all these crimes and these horrific sadistic things. There's also a sexual element to that too, because I've spoken to women that, I was fairly convinced that they were hosting a reptilian entity, a male reptilian entity in one particular case. So a male reptilian entity inside of a human-female hybrid. And she said that she was having intercourse with the guy, and then suddenly her regular consciousness stepped out of her body and observed herself getting into all these really perverse acts that she would never dream of in a million years. That's because the entity that was working through her had basically taken over and kind of ejected her consciousness, right? So those things happen too. So we must keep in mind that the entities working through these people, the consciousness coursing through them, is not human. They may appear to be human. Some of these sick politicians and these pedos and these high-level serial murderers, they may only look human, but as the Emerald Tablets talked about, it's like they're serpents in human guise. So that's where this whole concept of the reptilian overlordship comes from. Okay, here's a good picture, okay? I don't want to foster a witch hunt mentality. This woman could be the salt of the earth. She could be a wonderful, loving person, but because of a preponderance of reptilian DNA, sometimes she has, like I said, vertical slit pupils. That doesn't necessarily make her bad. I only put that picture there as an illustration. Eileen Wuornos, serial killer. She used to talk about how UFOs were sending her messages, telling her to do things. In all likelihood, the Florida police authorities knew what she was doing, but they let her continue her rampage. Andre Chikatilo. Now, when you look at the facial structure of these people, people say, oh, these serial murderers, they could be anyone. That's nonsense. They have a certain look to them. Because of the preponderance, the overabundance of reptilian or Draco DNA, they have a certain look to them. This was a monster of Rostov in Russia. He was a cannibal and ate a bunch of children. I always thought this was an interesting picture because that's Queen Elizabeth I. For some reason, some guy got the bright idea. How much time do we have? There's a watch here somewhere. Okay, thank you. I always thought this was interesting because some artist or something got the bright idea to apply turpentine or something to where Queen Elizabeth I's hand is, and when they wiped away that part of the painting, the snake entity showed up. Now, there are snake entities. There are these interdimensional snake entities that embed themselves in the solar plexus of people, in the throat chakra of people, and in various parts of people's anatomy. It's very similar to, if some of you watched Stargate SG-1, which was the spin-off of the Stargate movie. In Stargate SG-1, for the first several seasons, the principal bad guys were the Goa'uld, which were snake-like aliens that burrowed into the neck of somebody and took them over as a host. Well, in actual fact, there are these interdimensional snake entities that burrow into, well, they take up not just humans as hosts, but they take up other entities as hosts too. It's like kind of an equal opportunity thing. Cannot vouch for the veracity of this picture. It's alleged to be an underground critter, some cave system somewhere, and I only put it up there to talk about, yes, there are underground subterranean beings, there's entire underground civilizations, some quite advanced. That's a sketch of a drawing of a reptilian, a male reptilian that a colleague of mine who goes by the pseudonym Monica Starship, she encountered that reptilian and tried to do some sketches of it.
Somebody else who has had that effect on me is Igor Kostoy from Against the Grain.
That's a representation of the Draco, winged gargoyle kind of being.
Is this not this one? And then he just
Interestingly enough, that's a shopping mall. That's a shopping mall in Tempe, Arizona.
There's a texture to it. I like hearing someone.
Interestingly enough, just east of Tempe in the Superstition Mountains is a large reptilian underground base. Yes, indeed. Many people have encountered reptilians there. Outside of Las Vegas is another large reptilian base, which I investigated before.
You can't block it in a bowl. It's not. Nobody will steal it from you.
There's a good picture. A colleague of mine, in fact, my colleague on the Cosmic Switchboard, he found this in the album of his mobile phone, in the photo part. He didn't know how it got there, it just wound up there. Now, to me, it looks for all the world like a portal is opening up, and some being with a hat is on the other side. Now, there are beings that wear hats. Some of these shadow people, beings wear hats. I mentioned earlier about some beings that wear cloaks and hoods. Well, some wear hats. I only put that picture there to point out that portals do exist, and that entities frequently utilize portals to come into our reality, come into our space. Here's another example. This sketch was drawn by a buddy of mine, and this guy's bloodline is interesting because he's one of those offshoots of the Rothschild clan, actually. And he lost 2 girlfriends over the years, maybe more for all I know, because with 2 separate girlfriends, his pupils went vertical. and his girlfriends went eek, and that was the last he saw of those particular two girls, right? So every once in a while, whether it's due to fatigue, weariness, whatever the case may be, sometimes these peoples go vertical. But we have to be careful because sometimes, okay, we are all hybrids of one being or another. Some of you have the genetic profile of several different ET races, some positive, some not so positive. We're the sum of all of our parts. I was once on Skype with a dear friend of mine. I saw her shapeshift into a feline being. Because there are feline beings, folks. There's lion beings, there's being humanoid, cat-like in appearance. And some of those feline beings have warred against the reptilians since time immemorial. Now, if someone who didn't know any better was looking through my computer screen on Skype when my friend shapeshifted, they would have said, oh, she's a reptilian. No. She's a feline. She just happened to shapeshift, but I knew the characteristics. I knew what to look for, right? Well, in this guy's case, the guy whose pupils turn vertical every once in a while because he's descended from the Rothschilds, although he detests the reptilian overlordship and he detests the New World Order, again, it's the soul quality that counts, folks, right? He was laying in bed. He looked up above the headboard of his bed. This portal had opened up, and these three reptilians were peering out at him. He got the feeling, for some reason, the one in the middle was female, right? And he said in the distance, it was a dark cavern, and in the distance, there was like a lighted city, right? But he got the impression that it was underground somewhere. And this was in Las Vegas also. It was a reptilian. Never mind. Okay, this is the gal that I mentioned earlier where the reptilian was playing with her hair. Those are two what seemed to be tall grays, but what was interesting was when she was laying there, you see the big black eyes, folks, they're really eyepieces, right? They're like eyepieces. Now, it's been alleged, I have no reason to doubt it, that night vision goggles, which we take for granted today, military uses them, and you can buy commercially available night vision glasses. Apparently, that is back engineered from the Roswell and other UFO crashes. It turned out, supposedly, that when one looks through these dark like eye patches, one can see in the dark at night. Well, anyway, she was laying there, and she was just at the right angle. Behind those black eyes, she saw the reptilian vertical pupils. So they're either a hybrid variant between the reptilians and the tall grays, or the reptilians pretending to be tall grays. The baby Godzillas. What are those suckers coming right in the face? Now, I showed you earlier the statuette, probably looted from the Baghdad Museum for all we know, but it shows like a monarch reptilian king kind of guy holding like a scepter. Now, what's interesting, folks, and some of you know this from your Atlantean, Lemurian incarnations and Syrian incarnations, what's been handed down as far as like emblems of power and things that signify power and bloodline and whatnot, like scepters, like ankhs you see in the Egyptian artwork of the Egyptian gods and goddesses. They're walking around with oversized ankhs. Those are power tools, right? Like the thrones, okay? Some of those thrones are actually teleportation devices. Some of those oversized ankhs are actually teleportation devices. And these wands, at least one of the things they do is they levitate people. And here's a story. That gal I just showed you laying there in bed, she was wrestling in her mind whether she was going crazy or not. She's getting raped by reptilians and militaries coming around. I mean, that's a lot on one person's plate, right? And here's another thing too, and I'm not making light of this, but it's part of the shame guilt factor. And that, you see, we're all to one degree or another shame-based individuals. And when we don't work through the shame-based parts of us, we have hang-ups and we have issues, we have complexes that may take years for us to even realize we have, and it takes even longer to work through them, right? One of the byproducts of reptilian sexual encounter is the reptilians not only are masters of frequency and density, they can activate the woman's kundalini, and they can engender what's been described as a full body, powerful orgasm. which in some cases could last for hours. Now imagine that. Imagine just the physical exertion and the breathlessness and the exertion it takes to be made to go through like a full body orgasm for, in some cases, hours. Now, what happens sometimes is, and again, this is not passing judgment, this is not, being, judgmental or anything like that. Sometimes the woman acts out, and because a byproduct of repeated reptilian rape sometimes is a heightened libido. And not surprising at all, because they have the ability to manipulate the chi, the sexual chi, the kundalini of the woman. In truth, warlocks, adepts, many of them hybrid reptilians anyway, can do the same thing, like the astral raptoids that I referenced earlier. So what happens is sometimes these women are saying, "Oh, that was scary. I hate that reptilian," but darn, it felt really good. You know what I mean? And they start to wonder, like in her case, because her husband was not only skeptical, but he was abusive. She was wondering, when's the darn thing coming back? You know what I mean? And so, I've talked to many women about this, and when I have discussions, we have very clinical discussions about these things. No shame, no guilt, because shame is a lower density thing that kind of keeps us mired in the lower, frequencies of life. There should not be any shame attached to this kind of experience. Like I said at the outset, there's a lot of shaming of people who report these experiences, a lot of shaming of people who report alien abduction experiences. So what happens is this cycle of shame and guilt winds up as an OCD thought loop in some of these women, because it feels really good, these full body orgasms. They're not getting their emotional sexual needs met from Tarzan, the skeptic. So this is happening to them every once in a while, right? And because a part of them wants the entity to come back, they develop this guilt and the shame, and it's a cycle, right? And so, we just need to break out of that mode. There's nothing shameful about this. And sometimes what will happen, too, besides a heightened libido, is if the woman doesn't have a partner, she may resort, and this is where the whole long-winded thing about this was how porn factors into this also, is sometimes the woman, or in our example, a male who's being manipulated by reptilians, they may resort to compulsive self-gratification, i.e. compulsive masturbation. We are sexual beings, folks. That's, we're here to procreate. We're here to bring wonderful children into the world. And what these beings do to us is, they utilize us as assets, and leech off us in a parasitic way. So sexually, all across the board, energetically, it's an energetic harvesting. It's energetic emotional harvesting. Okay. Anyway, long-winded. That gal who was, having these reptilian experiences, she was going nuts, and she was, going through the guilt cycle about having sex with a reptilian. She said, "I'm just going to deny it all. None of this is happening. This is all crazy. I'm losing my mind." The very next morning, these two showed up, and one of them waved that little wand at her and said something to the effect of like, "So you think you're losing your mind? You think you're having a daydream?" And it made her levitate. If this picture was extended further out to the right, you would see her horizontally, like looking up at the ceiling, flat on her back, like she's suspended in midair. And that little reptoid made her float like that for a while, and then lowered her, and then scooted her off and disappeared. Right? Some of the reptilians are quite technologically advanced. This was drawn at the time. The person who drew this was a kid in high school, about year 10, year 11, something like that. His father was a good friend of mine. His father ran the Naval Aviation Depot, where they worked on the avionics for the FA-18 Hornets, as well as the Navy's version of the airborne early warning aircraft. The Hawkeyes, I think they're called. I forget the name of them. Anyway, his father ran that department at Naval Aviation Depot in North Island, my old stomping grounds. Right, so we're not talking about a family of kooks here, right? His father worked on multi-million-dollar stuff for the U.S. Navy. Anyway, that is what the reptilian looked like that his son had encountered. Had kind of a cave, had a utility belt, And they also had gray experiences in that house too, as well as encounters with beings that had like little guys that had hoods on. Talked about serial murderers. I'm just kind of zipped through it, but there's an infamous one right there. Look at Richard Ramirez, the so-called Night Stalker. Ted Bundy. Dennis Rabbit. Interesting case. Lower right corner. He was known as the South Side Rapist. And you can find a doco about him online somewhere. He said, as a young boy, he was being raped, sexually assaulted by a female, some kind of female being, succubus kind of being, and also he was having encounters with a being that had wings sprouting out from between the shoulder blades. So it sounded to me like a Draco. In fact, he drew a sketch of it, and it looked to me like a Draco. Dennis Rader, the so-called BTK killer, bind, torture, kill. Now, notice so many of these serial killers are into bindings and into restraining and, taking absolute possession of their victims. Because, like in a godlike fashion, how some little boys like to pull the legs off of a cockroach or something like that. They feel they have this godlike power to inflict torture and cruelty upon their victims, because they're not like us, folks. This is why the world is the way it is, because it's run in large measure by hybrids like them. They see us as a resource. They like to mess with us for their own amusement. And so the sooner we realize that what we're up against, the sooner we'll change this whole paradigm. This was the same guy showed you this photograph of the big bruise and the 3 triangular marks around it. He had also an encounter with a reptilian. Now, Dave, he's a local guy. I mean, he spent a lot of time in around here and other places, and he's been messed with by the military, messed with by reptilians. Interesting story from Matt. I've been in comms with this guy for several years now. Around the time of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, he was having experiences where he was being taken to what seemed to be deserted shopping malls in the middle of the night, where he was being put through my lab training, and reptilians seemed to be the ones running the show. There would be like military there, even law enforcement, but it seemed to be reptilians that were behind all the training, and had to do with like riot control and that kind of thing. This is Matt, and this is some recent bruises. These are bruises that only showed up a couple of weeks ago. These are fresh. And notice the yellow tint, very common amongst people having reptilian experiences. 5 minutes? Okay. 5 minutes, good message before we leave, all right? Okay, similar thing. Yellow mark is the same picture, it's a different angle. Jerry Sandusky. I put this picture up, okay? Notorious American serial pedo. He used to like set up all these pedo rings for the elite over there. Look at him, right? Look at his teeth, look at his facial structure, eyes. And just look at some of these perps, folks. Look at the monarchy and they don't look like us, right? They don't look like us. Is there anyone in your circle of friends and family that look like this? And this guy happens to be running elite pedo rings? Jimmy Seville, another guy, right? Now, interesting, this Albert Fish. He was a cannibal. He used to he said he likes children because they taste good. That's what he said. Look at him again. Facial structure. Gary Heidnik, this guy was, he used to have this torture house in Philadelphia. Horrific stuff. Henry Lee Lucas, him and his partner Otis Toole, they went on a crime spree in America. Oh yes, can't forget this. Crystal methadone and a variant of it called crank in America, and increasingly nowadays ice and all this other stuff, and also, truth be known, certain pharmaceuticals. They lower the vibration, they lower the frequency of the user, okay? to the point where these entities, these not just reptilians, but also some of the greys and some of the other lower fourth density type entities, they have a sympathetic resonance to speed, to meth. And one doesn't even have to have one scintilla of reptilian DNA to become a host if they start using this stuff. Because the entities have a sympathetic resonance with the drug. And when the person starts using the drug, these entities jump into these people without parachutes. And it doesn't take long for them to become a full-on host. That's why when it comes to meth in America, they call them tweakers, right? You know, he's tweaking out on speed again, right? And like some of the places I mentioned earlier, Victorville, the high desert of Southern California, full of tweakers. And it's not unusual that these tweakers would manifest all kinds of violent behaviors because the entities had affected a perfect interface and were working through them, using the person's body as a medium through which to do anything at once in our physical world. A lot of these lower density beings hate us, they hate life, they're anti-life. So the first chance they get to wreak havoc, you know, through someone like this or other people, right? They do it. It's a frequency war. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. I put that picture up there not only for his facial structure, but if you look closely, you will see vertical pupils. Vertical pupils, right? And some people say, oh, like on Facebook or on YouTube, oh, look, that's just Photoshop, that's just photo editing. No, that's a vertical pupils on a known serial killer. Another guy, Richard Trenton Chase, he was saying aliens were telling him that if he didn't drink fresh blood, his blood would turn to powder. Long story, you got to read about it. Facial structure, don't look at the name, just look at the face, right? Really, just forget about the name for a second. Just look at the face. Guy just happens to, you know, his family owns most of the world. Don't look at the name. If you can see up close, you will see he's got vertical pupils. Now, just one more point, and I'll end it here. That picture at the bottom came from a documentary by the Cambridge spies. I'm a student of espionage, counter-espionage, stuff interests me. He was a key player. In fact, he was the protector of the Cambridge spy ring. That's a whole other story. But if you look at the picture close up, you will see vertical pupils. And that was a doco long before Photoshop, long before photo editing, long before the internet. So all this stuff about, oh, you know, there's no vertical pupils, it just, you know, that's just a trick of the light or something. It's utter nonsense. So I'll leave you with this thought. Okay, the struggle is always within, inner shadow, right? And instead of our inner shadow being our adversary, it can be our ally. Acknowledge our inner shadow, love on it, work with it. Working on ourselves is the most difficult thing we can ever do, and it takes some people an entire lifetime to undo all the damage, not only from countless incarnations where we've been abused, messed with, and accrued all this unfair baggage and karma, but, you know, sometimes people are born into archontically controlled families, toxic families, surrounded by narcissistic people, right? And so their self-worth and their self-love has just been eradicated. And it takes a while to undo the damage. So, you know, we're all in varying stages of this journey. And I'm really glad that you're all part of it with us. And I know that, you know, when you people go out to wherever you're from, you're going to go around, you're going to plant seeds, you're going to encourage, you're going to uplift others. Because you have it within you. You're the sum of all your parts. Some of you have done amazing things in the past, and some of you aren't even aware of the innate potential you have for doing great things. And so just remember one thing. For the first time in a long time, the energies are shifting in our favor. These negative entities of all stripes and the hybrid minions they're working through are having a difficult time adjusting to this energetic shift. Despite all the chemtrails, despite all the scalar wave weaponry, despite all the harping that they put out, they can't stop this energetic shift from happening. So I just encourage you to ride that frequency wave and just associate with those of a light, vibration and a light mind. And, I know you can do wonderful things. And I thank you for being here.
being here tonight. The Closing Encounters conference continues tomorrow upstairs from 9 a.m. If you haven't already purchased tickets, you can purchase tickets at the door from 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And I'm sure many of you would love to come back and connect with.
So this is his channel, Interviews and Lectures. And well, just let you know that it's 2:30 in the morning now. This is quite an interesting interview school. Only as I said, can't speak much because the radiation frequencies are strong and I'm being radiated, I can't even think. So you've got some audio, some are obviously the minor labs and encounters 9 months ago. Some it's audio just playing, some it's visual.
That it's in total lockdown and boots on ground, food rations, and it's not very nice for the people that's living there. Probably about a month before that actually happened, I had an off-world and it's like, just to...
So that's been going.
And he was dressed like 1940s. Have a facility that is a maker of, army tanks, ammo, all what to do with war and everything else. So they have been incredibly busy of late, probably for a good year. And I drive past this place every day. And some nights I was sitting with a friend of mine, and you can hear something happening underground. So I do believe that there's a tunnel system that runs from that facility right under my house, because I've sat in my house with friends and they're like, what in the world was that? And I said, it sounds like gear changing to me. So I think that must have a huge...
I should just end the stream on